Cool. So hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to our email workshop. We have a lot to cover today. So I'll try to be as quick as I can through the slides. We do have a section at the end for Q&A, should you guys have any questions or any concerns. But should anything come up along the way, feel free to drop a message in the chat and we can get back to it either through the call or as we get to the end. So without further ado, let's get the show started. Today we have myself and we also have Alex Satarian. Both of us are product managers working on Marketing Pro here at ServiceTitan. Between us, we have a ton of experience in the software world. So I've been working here at ServiceTitan for the previous 10 years and have spent the previous 5 on Marketing Pro. Alex, I don't know if you want to jump in and give a quick 2 seconds about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. Excited to be here and to share a lot of knowledge with you. I've been at ServiceTitan for a little over 3 years, come from a big background of any kind of email and SMS marketing in other industries as well. Have been doing this for the past, I think, almost 20 years now. And yeah, hoping that you'll get a lot of good advice from us on this workshop. Thanks, Ara.
Cool, for sure. All right, so let's get started. And I think number one thing to keep in mind about email marketing, and probably the most foundational thing as we move through this slideshow and through the presentation, is deliverability. Well, what is deliverability? It's the ability to actually get emails into the inbox that you want. And when emails are sent, they typically have to go through a process of gateways and a process of filtering themselves through spam filters before they actually end up where you want them to be. Every year, it's really, really important to understand this. Every year, day by day, month by month, the logic behind these filters changes and their preferences get more and more and more restrictive. So one thing to keep in mind is that there's no single golden ticket that's going to get you to the end line. This really is a matter of being diligent across multiple things with your sending, namely content, how much you're sending, to who you're sending. And over the course of the presentation today, we'll cover exactly what those factors are and how you should be arming yourself to make sure you have really, really good reputation as a sender. One analogy I really, really like to use is that email deliverability is like a ladder. It's a step-by-step process to get to the top and ultimately where you want to be. But if you miss a ring or if you make a mistake along the way, then you find yourself at the bottom of the ladder immediately. These mistakes will lead to sudden and drastic results that unfortunately are going to be very, very negative to your overall reputation and as a result, your campaign performance. When you start your sending journey as a sender, you start off on a clean slate and your reputation kind of goes either north or south, dependent on what your behavior is. So it's really, really, really critical that you keep track of your reputation as you're sending. And 2, do everything you can to ensure that it's in a good standing. So let's cover these spam filters and how not to get stuck with them. Number one thing, again, to keep in mind is every single email campaign that you're going to run is a fight against these spam filters. And these spam filters, unfortunately, are black boxes. And the frank reality is if companies were transparent with how they worked, then everybody would just use that logic to get around them. And as a result of that, they have to be super, super, super protective of the underlying logic behind it. A lot of the spam filter logic is AI or machine learning driven. It's self-improving. And at this point, there's been different generations of teams working in very, very siloed, segmented environments that often only have compartmentalized knowledge and don't have a full understanding of how things work. So again, the only real way to kind of understand what the preferences are to send and evaluate the data based off of your sends. And so I might make this seem like it's something that's not worth your time, that it might be a super Herculean effort, but in reality, that's simply not the case. There's a few simple things to keep in mind as you're sending, which we'll jump into in just a second, which are going to ensure that you're sending with the best reputation possible. At a high level, that's three concepts: send consistently, send with quality, and send with intent. So when we say send consistently, we mean try to keep a constant volume of emails going. We want to be really, really careful of sending large one-time campaigns to large sections of our customer base, especially when we're building reputation initially. And we want to maximize the amount of automated transactional-esque messages that we can get out. Next thing is, again, send with quality. We want to make sure that the templates have high quality copy. We want to make sure that the imagery is very, very high quality. We don't have any low quality images or anything that may even be viewed as just unprofessional from the recipient. We want to make sure there's no spammy verbiage or anything that might come off as maybe even a little bit shady. And the last thing is we want to make sure that we have very, very visible, well-placed, and well-oriented call to actions. So we'll touch in on that in just a moment. But the last thing here is to send with intent. And when we get to the list building portion of this, we'll dive into a bunch of different strategies and different campaign ideas. But the important thing here is to make sure that you're sending the right message to the right person at the right time. And the only way to do this is to ensure that you're hyper targeting your audiences. Your campaigns are set up around very specific use cases or scenarios within the customer lifecycle, and that you're going to be sent to recipients that are engaged, and not only engaged, but sending at the point where they're most engaged. And so if we take a look here at this volume comparison graph, where the number of emails sent is our y-axis and the time over which we're sending it is reflected on our x-axis, over here on the left-hand side is something that we would consider bad behavior, or that would be picked up by spam filters as just non-well optimized sending behavior, which as a result would lend to very, very poor deliverability. So in this case, what we see is somebody starting off on a clean slate reputation. Maybe it's their first email campaign. They immediately send out a large blast to their customers. We have a huge dip in volume because nothing's really coming out over that time period. Then we have another huge blast going out, another huge dip in volume. We don't send anything for a long period of time, and we send out another huge blast. So the analogy I like to use is peaks and valleys. Essentially, if your volume looks like a bunch of peaks and valleys on a graph, it's probably not a good thing if there's no consistency to it. And what you really want to avoid are high points between these peaks and these crests, right? So what would look better to a sending, or rather, excuse me, inbox provider, someone like Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, would be something more akin to rolling hills. So as opposed to having this huge mountain range, have a more consistent volume on this graph that makes it seem more like, again, a bunch of rolling hills. And if you notice here, the peaks and the crests here are much lower, with the shorter distance between one another versus this graph. So that's ultimately what we're trying to go for. And when we're sending, again, this is something that's going to require a lot of consistency, a lot of diligence. You're going to have to check regularly, check how your campaigns are doing, evaluate your reputation before you launch the campaign to kind of get a baseline understanding of what your overall performance is. Then you need to make sure that the same principles, procedures, and preventive measures that we're going through in this slide deck today are applied to every single campaign that you send. And persistence, just because you have a good reputation today, again, doesn't mean you're going to have it tomorrow. Going back to that ladder analogy, a simple mistake can really, really bring that down for you. And suddenly you may find yourself no longer landing an inbox and say the promotions tab, or maybe even not even reaching the promotions tab and hitting spam. So very, very important to do this. And again, the key thing to highlight is better deliverability. It means more revenue for you. It means a wider audience that you're going to be able to engage in a much better and performative manner. And for the customer, that's a better customer experience because they're not going to be missing emails that otherwise they would want to receive. They're not missing any information or newsletters or transactional-esque emails that they should be getting. etc., etc. So let's get to the list building portion of this, the what, the how, the why. The first thing to get to is your data. So garbage in, garbage out. I love preaching this. But unfortunately, this is probably one of the hardest things to enforce as a marketer, just because it involves so many other people and the whole entire org. But it's very, very, very critical to make sure that people are logging follow-up events correctly, that people are creating estimates and grouping them under opportunities in a consistent and predictable manner, that people are following the processes set by ServiceTitan in terms of how to set up a job, how to handle a membership, how to handle a recurring service. And if there's garbage in, then unfortunately the data we're going to get when we're trying to filter for these lists, when we're trying to personalize our emails, is going to be garbage as well, which is either A, going to completely hinder our ability to reach out to a given cohort for a given campaign or communication type, and B, in the off chance that we do send this, is going to lead to really, really bad performance and unprofessional look for your company. And honestly, going back to the reputation side of things, degradation of your reputation as a sender. So going back to the best practices when we're building a list, high level, the goal is to maximize the effectiveness by reaching the right message, the right people at the right time. And to do this, we need to understand what kind of segments we're going to need to target for each respective campaign. And we're going to need to figure out what parameters we need to set up within our data to ensure that that's the case. And lastly, we need to make sure that the segment we're building and the campaign we're trying to reach them with is engaging, persuasive, and drives the desired actions, whether that's a conversion on some sort of job type, maybe an estimate, or literally just building rapport with the customer. A few key concepts, keep it in mind when you're sending an email, personalize it. The more white glove and the more catered you can make it seem, the merrier. Keep it short. Really try to think through the amount of time it's going to take for the recipient to read an email and how short people's attention spans are now. In the age of TikTok, in the age of Instagram Reels, it's like there's literally a 60-second cap on attention spans nowadays, and it's much more hard to capture someone's attention without having the video, without having the captivating audio in the background, etc. So you really, really need to fight for their senses. And to do that, you need to make things short. Otherwise, a big block of text is going to simply be glanced over. Again, you need to be consistent with your behavior. And lastly, most importantly, create engaging and relevant content. Don't send irrelevant content in your emails. Keep the message on topic. So when we're building a list, there's a nice 6-step process to follow. The first thing is going to be to define the goals for the campaign, whether that's going to be to sell maybe some overstock equipment, maybe manufacturers providing really, really good discounts on something like a heat pump or maybe like a water heater. And as a result, you want to promote that. Next thing, understand your data, because you need to understand what you need to slice and dice to build your lists. Let's go back to that water heater example. Let's say we want to follow up with all open estimates on a water heater, just letting them know, hey, our manufacturer is giving us this killer discount. We're getting 20% off our equipment costs, which we'll pass on to you, something along those lines, right? Well, first, you're going to need to understand which estimates you need to target, what statuses you're going to need to reach, what date those estimates were created. And then once you've done all of that, that's going to turn into your audience criteria. And once your audience criteria is identified, then you're simply just going to go plug it into the audience builder, spot check those results, and then tie it to a campaign to actually send. Now, these 3 steps over here, to understand your data, go ahead and build your criteria and then enter it in, is typically where people get stuck, especially when they have an idea, but maybe not necessarily the best understanding of how their operational data is set up within ServiceTitan today. So I like to kind of give this analogy and break it down into an easier way, the haves and the have-nots. Try to think of scenarios where someone has done something, but not necessarily converted on the full range of actions that you'd like them to, right? So maybe someone did get a quote, but they haven't actually purchased. That's a great case for an unsold estimates campaign. Maybe someone's had a repair done, but they haven't gotten a new system. And so in a year or 2 years, that unit's going to go bad because the technician went through, took a look at it and said, maybe we'll change the capacitor now, but condenser is probably going to go bad, or our blower motor is probably going to go bad in a year or two. That's a real good case to follow up on. Maybe someone has purchased a new unit, but they haven't purchased a maintenance program, right? And there's going to be a time where that warranty expires and you have an opportunity to reach out and say, hey, your warranty's up, or hey, your unit might work more efficiently or better if you get it tuned up once a year. Sign up for this maintenance program. And lastly, maybe someone's used you for a given service, but not necessarily for another service you offer, right? And so there's a ton of have and have nots within this customer life cycle and within the services your business offers that really unlock almost an endless amount of automation opportunities for you to reach out to. And I really encourage you guys in your spare time to kind of map out that customer life cycle, everything pre-sale to post-sale, how that looks on your business's end, what the existing follow-up processes are, and then try to identify the gaps and other additional opportunities that you could use automation to reach out and leverage the capabilities we provide. So when it comes to content building, a little bit more straightforward. Few things to take into consideration. And excuse me, the slides were actually just rolled around. But on the list building side, another thing to call out, excuse me, guys, forget moving these slides around, the tags and task codes. So go ahead and utilize tags as much as you can. Two ways to do this. One, on the technician side of things, if they notice any opportunities for any maintenance, for any problematic equipment or potential upsell in the future, try to create and processize the application of certain tags for those given scenarios, such that you can simply just filter for these tags within the audience builder and pull lists. And again, when it comes to the home inspections, when it comes to the first initial walk around, that's a great opportunity to come in, tag the customer with maybe 4 or 5 different tags, highlighting what opportunities might be available. Task codes, really make sure that these are lined up well. So if you are going to be filtering for tasks within the audience builder, unfortunately, what we see is a lot of tasks that built over time. Old ones will remain there, be stagnant. So just in case there are any similarly named task codes and you choose to filter for specific tasks, make sure you're filtering for the right unique one. Unfortunately, this is a common mistake we see people make. And the last thing to plug in here is custom fields. Please use custom fields as a manner to filter within your audience builder, leverage them, put them on the location record, the customer record, the job record, encourage the technicians to fill out information. Even the CSRs can collect this information, but things as simple as customer birthday or any other home property information that might be relevant for you or your business and the offers you guys have. Now, jumping back to the content side of things, 3 key concepts. Number 1, on your design. Again, mentioned this earlier, but always make sure your design is visually appealing. It aligns with your brand and utilizes high quality imagery and quality copy. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people send emails. Their brand colors are white, red, and blue. They pick a pre-made template in ServiceTitan that has green, orange, yellow, and they just send that. It takes 1 or 2 minutes to jump in and alter the colors. Make sure that you have the right hex codes. You can use a myriad of online tools to actually pull that information for you, even from your website. You can literally jump into ChatGPT, give it your website link, and ask it to identify your brand colors for you and just work off of that. There's no need to be a designer. As long as your company colors are used, that's much more preferable to not having copy or content that doesn't align with your brand. And on the personalization side, we have a ton of different merge tags for you to offer. We have all the standard merge tags like um, customer address, customer name, job date, etc. But we also have the opportunity to leverage custom fields. Chances are you guys are probably collecting super relevant information through custom fields anyway. But I'd like to give another plug for that just to give that added touch to the emails and make it stand out. And lastly, call to action. Always, always, always include a call to action for every single call to action you want them to take, whether that's opening up a link to view their estimates and book on them, whether that's to click a web scheduler and actually book an appointment, or simply just call in. And the most important thing is make sure that call to action is immediately visible on mobile. We have a ton of people sending out email campaigns that get good open rates, but terrible click rates because the call to action is all the way at the bottom. And the person opening it on mobile has to scroll 3 or 4 times to get to the call me button. They're probably not going to scroll 3 or 4 times if you can't immediately relay the value and the call to action. So always preview your emails and make sure that's available. So with the content said and done, let's kind of jump on to campaigns. Automated campaigns are really the bread and butter of ServiceTitan Marketing Pro. They're your best employees. They will work every single day without clocking in sick. They will do exactly what you tell them to do, and you can tell it to do as much as you want it to do. You could set up all the automations in the world, go crazy. But automation is where you make your money, not only from the conversion opportunities that you convert immediately, but from the lift in customer lifetime value through the increases in average job tickets and the jobs per year per customer. Those are two really key metrics where Marketing Pro has a lot of power to provide a really strong rising tide and lift to your company's revenue. We see a strong increase in average jobs per year per customer for those customers who utilize this tool exceptionally well, automating as much on the pre and as much on the post job scenarios as they can. And anecdotally, for some customers, that's been a 20% lift with about a 20% lift on their average job ticket as well, just through the conversion opportunities and closing out all the additional estimates that otherwise would have remained a zero. So extrapolate that onto your business's numbers and kind of see where that can take you. But the other thing to call out here on the automation front is this is the key to the right message, the right person at the right time. Trying to do this in a manual-esque manner, honestly, is nowhere near as effective. Without automation, you will not get the performance or the revenue or the ROI that one could otherwise expect. Pro tips, again, branding matters. I'm bolding that one in so we kind of drill the point across. Link all of your social media pages. It's a great way to grab traffic, especially if you have a great online social presence. Double check your links when you put them into your emails. Send yourself a test email first if they're static links. If there's anything dynamic, just create a customer for yourself, add yourself to the campaign, and get in your live email. And last thing, make sure tracking numbers are correct. Even if your tracking numbers are allocated, if you have something like Phones Pro, make sure they're allocated to the right pool. Go ahead and actually call in on that number yourself at least once to make sure that it's tracking and working the way you want it to. So let's get to the campaigns portion. I'll take a pause here just in case you guys want to start taking pictures. We have a couple slides with different campaign ideas for you to go through. But some of the marquee campaigns we see are campaigns on open estimates, new customer welcomes to build rapport, membership welcomes, explaining membership opportunities, or just upselling memberships wherever possible. On the personalization side of things, we see a lot of things like equipment birthdays, non-revenue oriented, non-conversion oriented emails that really make you stand out, make you seem like you really want to be involved with that customer and want to build a strong relationship with them. And lastly, on the informational newsletter side of things, campaigns around regulation changes or upcoming law changes are very, very powerful. In this case, on the HVAC side, regulations around upcoming refrigerant changes are something that we see get a lot of attention. I'll go ahead and pause on this one too, another list of campaigns. But again, those cross-trade campaigns we talked about earlier, the post-service upsells we talked about earlier, maintenance alerts, huge one. If you guys offer installer warranty, offering that as the manufacturer warranty expires is a great opportunity to get your foot back in the door, or even at the end of the warranty, just offering to come in, take a tune-up or inspection of the unit at a discount or maybe free. Is this another really, really nice way to build rapport. I'll go ahead, give you guys a few seconds if you guys want to take a screenshot, if you guys want to take another picture, and then we can jump forward. Cool. Okay. So let's jump into some of the more common cases on the unsold estimates front. I really encourage you guys to handle common objections within the email. So on the most common objection on unsold estimates is pricing. Typically, people are shopping 2 or 3 different contractors, getting different bids, trying to understand what they want to convert on. And for most people, the reason why they didn't convert on the estimate, again, comes down to pricing. Someone typically had a lower bid. There's a few common ways to handle this objection. One, include a snippet within the email text prompting them to call in, write something on, let us see if more discounts apply, maybe have them reach out to a specific employee or guide them to reach out to a specific phone number or department in case they might need any help or anything like that. $25 gift card or like the free membership offers work really, really well as an added benefit, especially if you can relay the value of that added membership that you're offering. Say, for example, maybe there's a $300, $400 difference between bids. You could probably establish maybe $2,000 or $3,000 worth of value within that membership potentially as a way to counter that. And last thing, establish social proof. If you have good reviews on Google, Yelp, Facebook, plug that in. Go ahead, put in five-star emojis. Copy a review or a bit of text from each review, and then link out, just put a link out to each respective social page and a picture of your star rating with the amount of reviews you have to establish that, hey, you know what, maybe we're a little bit pricier, but we're definitely the more reliable contractor or the more professional one or the one you may want to work with. And the last thing, always offer financing. If you have financing available, make that obvious somewhere within the template. It's a huge, huge save on the objections, especially if you can provide them an easy way to get qualified. Things to consider: if you have more than one estimate, if you're building more than one estimate to run at a time, consider filtering or excluding opportunities. So either open opportunities included or exclude one opportunities. Also, things to consider: how long do you want this campaign drip series to run? Again, most of the conversions we see on these campaigns happen within the first week. So, do you really want to run this at like 14, 30, 45-day cadence? Or do you want the email to go out immediately and maybe have 1 or 2 days in between? The latter of the two, personally, is what we see work better. But if you have any people following up manually internally, if you have sales techs following up on these opportunities, consider that as well. Membership side, there's so much to do here, whether it's selling to non-members or reminding current members about expiring memberships and that they need to renew. But a really, really good way to keep these memberships from not expiring and always renewing is remind them about any services that they may have signed up for. If they have a tune-up, remind them to get that scheduled. If someone doesn't have a membership, tell them how much money they could have saved if they had a membership, and then point out that the membership is a lot cheaper than the amount of money they overpaid without having it. And if you do have existing members, again, those birthday emails, those life event touch points are really, really good ways to build that rapport and keep them members. And the one key consideration here is there's obviously going to be a difference in loyalty and propensity to convert between members and non-members. So use appropriate wording and appropriate offers when reaching out to either cohort in order to lead to the highest possible conversion rate. Welcome emails, again, non-conversion oriented, but you can welcome someone just for joining a membership program. You can welcome them for just being interested in your services. If you have a new service to offer, it's a great way to introduce a new service, and not in a promotional way, maybe more so an awareness one. Things to consider: this needs to be an immediate email. You need to have this going out after whatever touch point you're looking for. And on the branding loyalty side of things, newsletters are awesome, but please keep them informative. Nobody wants to hear about generic information that everybody else is also sending them. So think of newsletters or information that's unique to your local service area, that may be relevant to a given neighborhood or a given community. Spotlight your successes, spotlight your team, anything that you may have done good for the community, whether it's sponsor some sort of charity event, some sort of sports club, whatever it is. Go ahead, highlight that out. People want to see that you're involved in the local area outside of just offering a service and operating as a business. But these are the kinds of things that make people choose your company over another company. And I think the last thing here before we get to the Q&A section is campaign analytics. On the email side, these metrics down here at the bottom are going to tell you everything you need to know about your campaign at a glance. Very, very, very easy way to understand how your campaign is actually performing. From sent to delivered, if we have a huge drop off, if we go from 50 to 40, 50 to 30, then we know we have a deliverability issue and that we need to focus on repairing that through more targeted, more transactional-esque, higher quality, more engaging content. If we go from delivered to opened and we see, hey, maybe we went from 50 delivered to 10 opened, we have a poor open rate, and that can be a sign of a couple different things. Maybe the time at which we sent the email was bad. So maybe they got a ton more emails by the time they opened up their inbox, and there was, a ton of emails on the top that they went through, and your email was on the bottom, so they didn't touch it. Or maybe by then it was completely on the second page. The second thing is maybe your subject line wasn't performing. Maybe it didn't grab their attention. Maybe it wasn't compelling enough to actually generate a click on it and to open up the email. So from opened, if to clicked, if we, let's say our opened is decent, but I clicked there's a huge drop off, then we know there's an issue with either the content, the call to action. So that could just be the placement of the call to action. It could be a non-appealing offer, or maybe verbiage that wasn't leading enough to actually get them to click in on the link. So try to understand what this means for you. Jump into each campaign after you send it. Regularly go through this exercise of just checking metric to metric to understand where your potential rooms of improvement are. And one last thing, guys, email is just one little card in your deck. You have a ton of different things to leverage with the more full suite of Marketing Pro, but also just as a marketer. If relying on email as a sole channel is not the most performant way to go about these things. So what I like to encourage is try to think of how you can make it symbiotic with your other channels. So for example, if you're doing the postcard rotation in a certain zip code, maybe it makes sense to follow up with an email to people who live within that zip code. If you're sending out an SMS blast, may be good to set up like a daisy chain-esque interaction where you follow up with a similarly toned email should they not convert. And we have really nice filters within the audience builder called the marketing behavior filters, which should let you daisy chain these campaigns one off of another. But always try to keep your email campaigns as part of a general, broader, overall marketing strategy, and always make sure that they're not only relying on their own performance as individual contributors, but working in a team of campaigns to lead to the results that you want. And I think with all of that said and done, we can open up the floor for Q&A. Any questions, comments, concerns anybody may have? Take that as a no. Okay, awesome. So I think from here, one of the other things I actually wanted to do was go through the process of setting up one of these campaigns. So let me go ahead and share my screen again. Forgive me, guys, this is a demo account, so we may see some strange things in here. But very, very straightforward to get started with the process of building an email campaign. What you want to do is jump into your campaigns or your email tab over here on the left, click on create a campaign and opt for an email campaign. From here, choose the type of campaign type that's relevant to your campaign. The reason why you want to do this is because ServiceTitan Marketing Pro will pre-filter relevant content for you ahead of time. So you can go ahead, click in on something like unsold estimates. I'll just put myself in the shoes of a marketer, creating an unsold estimates campaign. First thing to do is going to be to configure or add a tracking number. Two ways of going about this. We can either use a free floating number that we may not have assigned. We can also just reassign an existing number. These numbers will be organized by the date of most recent campaign activity up here towards the top. So if we'd like to do that, we can. We can also generate a new number. I'll search for one in my area code and find one that's visually appealing. I like this 8650 number, so I'll choose that one. And I'll add the number. Cool. So once that's done, next step is to either build or add my list. If you have a list that's pre-built, you can always go ahead and select it. ServiceTitan does offer a pre-canned audience by default for you to choose. If you'd like to set up something specific to your campaign, it's really, really straightforward. We'll just go ahead, name it, and jump into the audience builder. And we'll start off by filtering what we're looking for. So we're filtering for open estimates, right? So the first thing we'll do is filter for all estimates that have a status of open. And we'll try to keep it to only those that have been created in the past week and on a go-forward basis. So what we'll say is, find me all of the estimates that were created less than 7 days in the past. We'll go ahead and filter it for you. And again, we won't see real representative numbers here just because this is a demo account. But we can keep filtering for specific conditions, right? If we wanted to filter for estimates over a certain dollar value, if you wanted to filter for estimates that had a specific material or were of a specific job type, we can always do that. And next thing for us to do is work on our exclusion criteria. So what I want to go ahead and do is exclude all of the opportunities that have been won, because for my business's case, we set up a good, better, best set of estimates under one opportunity. And what I want to do is exclude anyone that may have converted on that opportunity recently. And then I think, as I'm going through my campaign, I realized, well, okay, I only want this to go out to my residential customers. So I'll jump back in here and add that as well. So I've successfully set up my audience. I have the criteria I want. So all I have to do is click continue and click in on that audience. And again, 0 contacts here just because this is a demo account. And we'll jump forward and start adding the content. So at this point, we can either opt to build our own template or use a template that ServiceTitan has provided. In this case, I'm going to opt to use a ServiceTitan provided template. And there we go. Cool. I'll take this one over here. So you see my brand logo automatically applies, but let's say my company colors are blue, white, and red. Pretty straightforward to go through and start changing the content color here. So what I'll go ahead and do is just click in on a given area. And maybe change the background color. Let's say I want this button to be red for now. And I want to go ahead and make this white. Perfect. Maybe I want this portion down here at the bottom to be red, or maybe something like this navy blue. That's better with my brand. Here, I'll jump through here and adjust the text color. Make this button red. Maybe I leave that bottom portion white. Cool. So now at this point, our template's in line with that brand. I'll go ahead and add a additional button here just to allow them to actually go ahead and view the estimate online. And once everything is kind of in my liking and set up appropriately, all we have to do is save it. And again, just make sure the social links and everything are plugged in as needed. At this point, we can start to set up another drip. You'll notice the subject line and the preview text already pre-filled because this template came with a paired subject line and preview text. If we'd like to change that, we can always go ahead and select another one that works for us or write our own. Additionally, we can further personalize these by adding in merge tags and making it a little bit more personal to the user. Once we click on save and continue, once we're happy with our content, next thing is either to simply schedule this campaign or opt to launch it later. So we can schedule it for now and just have it run immediately once it's done processing. Or again, we can say, hey, maybe run this at the beginning of the next calendar month. But very, very easy, very, very straightforward to set up campaigns in ServiceTitan Marketing Pro. And there's literally almost zero use cases we can't get to. You really have to try some to find something. But most of our campaigns, by the way, if you want to report on a campaign, just simply click in on it. You'll have a campaign detail page for every single campaign. You'll be able to take a look at performance totals, revenue totals, email metric totals, and your attributed revenue totals, as well as those metrics on a per email basis over here to break out the performance of each respective email by itself. And any calls generated show up down here in this table, but you can also just drill in on each one of these metrics should you want to learn a little bit more about the numbers. So that kind of wraps it up from a campaign setup and sending perspective. Again, I'll take another couple minutes to pause here if we have any questions or if there's anything that anybody would like to go through. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
With regard to happy birthday campaigns and aging equipment, what is the best way to manage that audience or filtering the audience in cases where old equipment and new equipment are both simultaneously listed on a customer's account?
Got you. Okay. So it's something like, hey, we installed a HVAC unit maybe 3 years ago, and then a year later we came out and installed another piece of equipment. So the question here is like, how do we make sure that both of those are getting the right message at the right time, essentially?
Correct. And then also, in conjunction with that, if old equipment that was replaced is still listed on the account and it was not removed when the
Ah, okay.
new equipment
Okay.
was installed.
So one for the first question, say you just installed like two pieces of equipment. Every time that window comes up, that equipment install date comes up for a certain piece of equipment, it'll send. So essentially, you could either set up something generic, say hey, your installs, it's been like 1 year since your install, to kind of handle both cases. On the other hand, where there's old equipment, as a general safety, what I would do is keep the install date to like something like this is less than or equal to 1 year in the past, right? So if you have this install date equal to 1 year in the past, that way you're ensuring that any old equipment it isn't being reflected. And so what you could do is set up like a 1 year birthday campaign and a 2 year birthday campaign and a 3 year birthday campaign. And then maybe let's say like year 5, like say it's a water heater. Year 5, they're probably gonna need some maintenance. So that would probably be the opportunity to kind of get your foot in the door. But as long as you set it up in this manner where you're looking off the install date and then looking for the specific like model, you can do that. By the way, the model will also help you solve for the first case where you have just different types of equipment installed. So if you do a campaign for like HVAC units, if you do a campaign for water heaters, if you do a campaign for another type of equipment like on electrical site, let's just say like panels, for example, that'll be a really, really good control and a good way to keep yourself safe.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions? No, I think we can end it here and we can all get a few minutes back.